Have you noticed something strange? When the Europeans arrived America, they called it the New World because it was actually new to them. But when they arrived Africa, suddenly they discovered it. Discovered who exactly? Because you cannot discover people who are already living their lives. You cannot discover people who were already building civilization, who were already building empire and society. You cannot discover people who were already building families, creating laws and living their lives, even going to the universities. That was not discovery. That was arrival. And do you know where it gets interesting? For thousands of centuries, people have been made to believe that Africa is a dark, isolated continent waiting for Europe to bring civilization. But the more you understand history, the more that belief begins to crumble. Because even before many European nations became global power, many African empires were already controlling trade routes worth portion. In West Africa, the Mali Empire became rich through gold and transatlantic trade. And from there emerged one of the richest humans that lived the earth, Mansa Musa. His pilgrimage shocked the whole region, even beyond Africa. And it wasn't just wealth. In Timbuktu, scholars studied mathematics, astronomy, law, medicine, and even theology. And there are still ancient manuscripts proving Africans' intellectual traditions were real and organized. Meanwhile, in South Africa, stone cities were already rising. The builders of Great Zimbabwe did that without modern machine. And do you know something disturbing? Some colonial historians didn't believe that Africans built that. That is how far the propaganda was. And when people convince the world with things like this, colonization starts to feel like help instead of exploitation and conquest. Down to East Africa, Ethiopia had ancient Christian tradition dating back centuries. The Ethiopian Empire had emperors, diplomacy, military system, religious institution, and written traditions even before colonization reached Africa. Along the East African coast, African merchants traded with Arabs, Persians, Indians, and even Chinese. And this proves something. Africa was never isolated. It had an organized trade network even before colonialism reached Africa. There was ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt was in Africa, built around the life-giving Nile River. And this river was one of the most important rivers in human history. It helped sustain several civilizations. When people say Europe discovered Africa, what they often forget is that Africa was already known, inhabited, trading, thinking, and doing their thing. What Europe really discovered was how much wealth Africa contained: gold, resources, land, labor, and even trade routes. And that realization often helped trigger events like the Berlin Conference, when European powers sat in a room and divided African territories amongst themselves, with no Africa being there. Not because Africa lacked civilization, but because Africa possessed value. You see, history becomes dangerous when power only tells the side that flatters power. Follow me right now for more history content. And remember, the motherland never forgets. Bye.